my challenge for you is for you to think about and come up with all kinds of different ways on how could you make your project look super awesome, super fancy. How could you make it look super fancy? How could you have your product have a unique style? What is a creative way you could add some artistic flair to your project? What could you do to your project so when somebody walks in and sees it, they're like, boom, wow, that thing is crazy. You got skills. So imagine if this was our project. We kind of like a plain bare wood table. Like the construction of that's not bad, like it's fine. And it's seeing the wood grain is not a bad thing, of course, but that's kind of just plain. It's not too exciting. But like let's say we could take this up another level. Maybe we stain or paint the American flag in there, and then like for example, they covered this like looks like either with glass or epoxy, so it's really shiny. And then this table or whatever this is, they painted all one solid color, but then they also put a design on there. So again, think about, well, like most of our projects, a lot of other projects are made out of wood. They're going to be kind of just plain wood. What can we do to spruce that up and make it look like super awesome? So let's go over some examples together. And then in terms of the first one here, so just painting the product, of course, that I think a lot of us are very familiar with that, just in terms of we could paint our whole product, let's say one color. But then I challenge you to think beyond that. What else could you do? Could the top be one color and then the legs be another, but it matches nicely? Could you paint some sort of design on there? Pattern, like polka dot pattern, stripes. Maybe you paint like a picture on there. And then one thing, like think about what you've learned in our different art classes, where, for example, you want to choose colors that complement each other. You don't want to have like an excessive amount of colors, like let's say 6 or something, but maybe like 3 colors that all kind of are in the same tone. Like for example, maybe use 3 pastel colors. Another thing you can think of is maybe you could be creative with masking tape. So for example, if you look at here, this person, they masked off these lines and then they just painted the orange all over it. So now you notice they're peeling back the tape and that reveals the color that was underneath. And that's what these students did on this thing here, is they put a whole bunch of masking tape all over this thing basically, and then they painted the inside shapes of color and then peeled the masking tape off. And then for example, this here, imagine if this cabinet thing was just all blue. It still wouldn't look bad. It's got those nice white handles on there, but they painted then this white kind of flower pattern on there, and that really makes it stand out. It looks, I don't know, it just matches this room really nice. So that's they did a nice job on that. So again, my challenge for you, think about if you can paint your project with a certain design pattern, those types of things on there. Maybe could you use masking tape some way? So think through that. Here's another example. Sharpies. Man, Sharpies, you can use them for a lot of different things. We can actually take Sharpies and draw, like if you want to do a precise kind of character kind of thing, or something like that, like paint, it's hard to be like this precise with paint. So that's one thing that's nice about Sharpies, is you could probably be a lot more precise if you want to do some sort of character. And what you'd want to do, of course, is draw it with pencil first, and then you could use Sharpies to fill in the color. And like, there's different ways you could do it. You could even like trace. You could print out a picture on printer paper, cut it out, and then tape it, and then trace it. And then this, so that's on bare wood. You can see those colors stand out pretty good. And then this is on like a white canvas. So you could think about, like, let's say you painted your project white or some kind of other lighter color, and then you went over it with a darker Sharpie to add some more design kind of stuff to it. And like, if you look up, there's all kinds of people doing this on cars, just in terms of different patterns and designs, and it's just kind of a neat way to add some design. Another thing that we can do is we could burn the wood. So if you have a wood project, we can use a wood burner by hand. It kind of looks like a soldering iron. This is what it is. You have different tips here, and you basically, it just gets really hot, and you put it on the wood, and then it burns the wood, and that area then looks like a different, it looks darker. So different ways you can do that. Like for example, maybe you would burn your first letter of your last name or your first name. Maybe you would burn your whole name or a picture or some kind of other design or pattern. And it just kind of looks nice on wood. And like different ways we could do this. One idea is if you like outline, you draw it with pencil. Draw it with pencil first, and then you go over it with the wood burner. And like one thing I like about this one here is we have a design on the top, and then it actually carries over into this other side. And it's kind of because, well, it's a tree, so we see the leaves and branches, not leaves, but just branches on this, and then underneath we see all the roots and so on. So that's a cool way that they implemented that. So again, that's being creative. That takes, like, you gotta think through instead of, oh, I'm just gonna put a picture on the top surface. Like that's better than nothing. Like putting letters or a phrase or I don't know, that's something like that. But then like this is like this took some thought to think through. Oh, I could have a tree. Okay, you can see parts above ground, but then there's parts below ground, and it's kind of like which way you have the box, you can see it. I don't know. It's just a nice implementation of that idea. We have something called a Cricut machine. I'm sure some of you have seen them or heard them, but the ones that we have, they can cut out vinyl. So vinyl is just like, it's kind of like a plastic that we can stick onto things. So we can actually make stickers. So we could, and it's kind of like you have to design what you want to be made. So you could have some letters, a picture, a name, whatever. And then the Cricut machine, what it does is it goes around and it cuts out all the shape. And then you peel off, like you would take what you want, and then you could slap it on. So for example, these people here on this little bucket thing, they cut out these words, kind of like a sparkly vinyl, and then they just placed it on. So it's kind of like a sticker. Another way that you can use this is, let's say you cut out the letters, you have like a negative space that you use as a template, and then you can see them here, they're painting over what they cut out. And that's kind of like the idea of like masking tape, where you can use that as a template, but this is just doing it like a more precise, more complicated type way, because that vinyl cutter can make those nice complicated shapes for us. So that is kind of what the Cricut vinyl cutter does. It's a pretty neat machine. Another machine we have is the laser cutter. The laser cutter can do a couple different things. It can, for example, in wood, it can etch designs or burn designs. So it's very similar to like using a wood burner. But one thing that's nice about the laser cutter is it would have more of a uniform or like even type color wherever it burned, and it can do a lot more detailed type designs. And we have to design that on the computer. So if you like doing that type of stuff, you could, like, again, you could do words, you could take pictures from the internet, you could design your own shapes, patterns, those types of things, and then we can send that to the laser cutter, and the laser can burn that into those wood pieces. We can also etch into acrylic or plexiglass. So if you notice here, these areas that are lit up, that's like what the laser would have burned into wood. So the laser, it etched into this plexiglass, and then underneath here, it's lit up. So this plexiglass is lit up from the bottom with LEDs, and those areas that were etched now stand out. The laser cutter can also cut out of acrylic, so we can cut out complicated shapes. So like, for example, this apple here, or the flame, we can draw these lines on the computer, and then the laser cutter will cut all the way through the plexiglass to make those shapes for us. So we can, on the plexiglass, we can etch and we can cut out the shape. And if you have more time or interested, like I said, you can backlight or underlight these designs and make them glow, and it just looks so cool. So for those of you doing like maybe Xbox or PlayStation type stuff or whatever, and then different ways that you could light them up. The easiest way is just buying existing, like if you look on Amazon, there's all kinds of just cheap, like $10, sometimes even less, LED light kind of things, and they come with a remote. You can actually change the color and so on. It's kind of neat. But anyway, that's laser cutter. The laser cutter does take a little bit more time. It takes a little bit more time to learn. Like, you can basically learn how to do some of your basic designing in 10 minutes. I have a 10-minute lesson that walks you through how to learn how to use the laser cutter. So anyway, that's laser cutter. Another thought is maybe you could add some sort of material to your project, like to add some sort of texture or other embellishments. This would be like an example of embellishments, like sticking on, I don't know, other little things. Like these are just all these like sticky jewel type things, and that made this L look a lot more interesting. And then here we got this cat condo type thing, and that fluffy carpet made a big difference in this being more enjoyable for the cats and for how it looks. It just looks so much cooler. And then of course the twine that was wrapped around. So think about if there's certain things that you could put on your project. Maybe, like, even if your thing's not a cat condo, you could still, let's say it's a lap desk with, so you got little legs. Maybe you wrap the legs with this twine as well. And it doesn't need to have a cat scratching on it. Or maybe you wrap the legs with this crazy fuzzy type carpet. But these are kind of things that you would have to bring. So then, okay, well, we saw all these examples here. So then now, how do we like go about choosing or doing this, or like what's the next step? So the next step is really for you to think, for you to plan, for you to be creative. It's just like when we did thumbnail sketching, is we're generating ideas. We want to generate, draw out, and plan multiple ideas. Then we want to choose the best one. Just like before, if the very first idea we have, that's usually not the best. The first idea might be good, but then we want to use that to build off of more ideas. So what you want to do is kind of draw out on paper like different ideas and different designs. How could it look? And those types of things, and just write out ideas, whatever. Do whatever works for you for your creative process. But the idea again is just come up with a whole bunch of different ideas. Maybe ideas that combine some of these different design ideas or techniques, or maybe just stick with one. I don't know, but you think through and think what would be really cool on your project. Talk with other people to get ideas from them, and give other people ideas as well. When we combine brains, that's how we tend to get lots of great ideas. So thanks for checking this out. I hope you can come up with some really cool ways to make your project look epic.